So I should be using this privilege to educate people more.
What's going on, everybody? I'm Jeremy, and this is The Conversation Show. Now, the point of this show is not to explain to you why you're wrong or we're right or anything like that, but rather just to explain our views on our reality as it is right now. If you disagree with us, by all means, we welcome that. All we ask is that you comment below, and maybe we can talk about it, open up the dialogue, and do stuff like that. So, without any further ado, without further ado, something like that. I don't know. My guest today is Emmanuelle Duperval, and she is a recent graduate with me from John Abbott College, the theater program, and she is a mixed race person, like myself, half Haitian, half French Canadian, and today we're going to talk about being mixed race. How are you, Manu?
I'm pretty good. You?
I'm good, thank you. So a lot has happened in the past few weeks with regards to race relations in North America. And I would even argue globally, there have been protests and marches and all that sort of activism going around the world. So the opening question that I want to ask you before we get to addressing that topic is let's start within your family. What has your experience been like being a mixed race person within your immediate family and your extended family?
I'd say for my immediate family, it was never a big deal because we're just all of us together. I mean, I guess I grew up more because of school in a more French Canadian culture than the Haitian side, just because I was more around people that were French Canadian. So it made more sense with that. But it was never something that was a big deal too much or anything. I never really thought of it in my house as, oh, I'm mixed race. It was just, oh, this is my family. And it just made sense. Where I did start to see more the difference was when I went to both sides. So my dad's side is the Haitian side and my mom's side is the French Canadian. And I when I went to the Haitian side of the family, I never fully learned Creole. I understand it. So when they're talking and everything, I understand everything, but I can never respond. I don't speak it. So I always felt like it was, okay, wait, I don't fully fit in with everyone else here, but it was never so much again, it was never a big deal, at least with my grandparents or my uncles and aunts and stuff. But it's still in the back of my head was something, I was like, oh, okay, wait, I don't know exactly, it was never fully fitting in, but it was never also a big deal. On my mom's side of the family, though, I feel there's a lot on that side. It's more they're from more small towns, and so there was a lot of things that we had to break through, I guess. So a lot of conversations sometimes, a lot more as I got older, because when I was a kid, again, I was oblivious to that world, didn't understand really that was even a thing. But yeah, it was never a bad environment. It was never a hateful environment in any sense, but it was just sometimes a little comment here and, oh, okay, well then we talk about it a little bit, and it never became a big deal. I love both sides of my family, and I'm lucky that on both sides it was never an issue. And if anything, I love having those conversations with them, because I feel since they're people I love, for them to understand the reality of the world they live in is something important. And those conversation makes them learn about the world, but also me, and see and understand other people's point of views, which maybe I don't see every day, or I don't speak with people who have those point of views every day. So it's something that I enjoy doing, although sometimes it can, I know sometimes some family members think I'm attacking them. I'm not. I just, it's just having conversation, kind of what we're doing with this, with these videos. It's just sharing our different opinions.
Have you experienced an encounter where it was difficult to get through to a family member?
It wasn't that it was difficult to get to, but there was a couple of times where the conversation, it was okay, we really need to sit down and talk about it. Because I think it was never a racism problem, more so than an ignorance problem. So from not knowing, like what was okay to say and what wasn't. And then I remember this one time we had like, I think it was a birthday party for my, like someone in my family, I can't remember. And then something was said and we are just like, okay, we need to sit down and talk about this. But it was never like hard to get to, I guess. It's more so I feel even I think I've had more difficult conversations about the environment than I've had about racism. So I guess it's like they were maybe longer conversations and more so just to like explain stuff, but it was never like a talking to a wall type thing.
Now let's take it outside of the family,
Mm-hmm.
like in school or in work or just outside with people who might not know you as personally or have that close personal connection to you. What has your experience been like with society and people outside of your family
Mm-hmm.
being a mixed race person?
Like I'm mixed, but I am white passing. So unless my hair is up like this, people don't know I'm mixed. And when I tell them I'm half Haitian, like I've had people laugh in my face and be like, aha, I don't know, but really, where are you from? I've had people think I'm just about anything other than what I am. I've had Latina, I've had Middle Eastern, or just straight white too. So in a way, I I guess I acknowledge I've been lucky for being white passing because I feel like I've had a lot of luck with the with white privilege and I haven't had racism as hard as some people that I know. But on the other way, like on the other side, I feel like because I'm mixed race, some people felt more like they could say it because they were like, oh wait, but you're half white, so like if I make a comment, it's like you're one of me, so like I can't say it. Or like one of the weirdest things that I've had. One time I was shopping with my sister and we were at this store looking like for, I don't know, dresses or we were just shopping. And then there's this lady that's there. She's just shopping, like doing her own thing. We're doing our own thing. And she just turns around and just starts petting my hair because my hair was out in like its full self. And I just look at her and then she sees on my face, I'm like, it was the first time it happened, so I didn't really know how to react. I just looked at her strangely, and she was just, "Oh, I'm sorry. I couldn't help myself. You have such pretty hair." And at the time, I didn't do anything because I was too stunned because of what happened. But now, like thinking back on it, I see it's those little things. Like I guess that's more of what I've had in the past. It's like little comments or little actions. I've never had like full on racism directed in towards me. I've had more of the casual side of it. So like little comments or, oh, but you look so exotic. That's one of the sentences I get a lot too. And every time, I guess when I was younger, I never took it in a necessarily bad way. I was just like, okay, you're weird. But it just like flew over my head. It's more now because I guess of the Black Lives Matter movement that I've been more aware. And I thought back of like, for example, moments I was with my friends and like I was with them and their parents and they had like some friends over, like the parents' friends. And I remember this one time, which was pretty recently, it was like a couple months ago. And we were just talking all together and one of them full on ignored me the whole time. Like she was just talking to my friend and her parents. She was asking questions to my friend about schooling, and my friend even like plugged me into the conversation more so in like oh, my friend's there, I'm gonna include her because she doesn't know the people here. She just didn't even look at me when she mentioned me. She asked me a question, my friend, and I answered, didn't look at me at all. And it was like so weird. And she felt also the need to say, like, and I think that's one of the time that I was taken aback by a comment, even though it wasn't about myself. The fact that she said it when I was there meant something, I guess. And we were sitting at this table and we are talking about like nothing that were to do with our families. And then she starts talking about I think her daughter. And her daughter was remarried and the daughter was white, but she remarried a black man and and he already had two kids. So now she was their stepmom. And the person who was there was like, oh, but they're not really my grandkids, because the father's black. And then she added, they don't look like me, so they're not my grandkids. And it was just like, it was never on the topic. It was never like something we brought up, but she had to mention it because I was there. And like my friend and I literally was like, okay, we're gonna go walk. And I feel like because I was in an environment where like I didn't know most of the people there, I didn't want to make a scene. But like with what's been happening lately, I feel like no, even though it's not about me, it's about that family, I should have stepped up. And I think that's something I feel guilty about. Because I was white passing, I feel there's probably even more events that I haven't realized and where I could have intervened. And because I am white passing, I feel like it's not that it goes through easier, but I've noticed that maybe they see me as more approachable. So I should be using this privilege to educate people more, which I feel I haven't done in the past, like at least nearly enough as I should have.
Now you mentioned some instances of microaggressions,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that in some cases it could be that people might not even realize what they're doing can be harmful or can affect a person in a negative way. And I just want to talk about that for a little bit with you. With regards to experiences where you faced the microaggressions, like the woman petting your hair, or like people calling you different like ethnicities, or assuming that like just because you're half white or half black, that like you're not fully on one side. Like what sort of effect can a microaggression like that have on you, and why do you think it's important that people know that it's not a passable thing to do?
Well, I think a lot of things about microaggressions is it's a lot more common than people think. I think because it doesn't read as flagrant racism as we see on the news or stuff like that, people just assume it's okay because they don't know better. And I think it's just a question of educating each other, I guess, because what can happen um, is the person can be singled out or the person can feel like like I've had this thing that my whole life of never fitting into both sides, like always feeling too white for the black community and too black for the white community. And sometimes also it's even worse when it's used by either people you love or people in your like environment, because then it's like, okay, wait, because for me it was never a question of like, as a kid, I never grew up seeing different colors or different people. They were just people. And so it's like almost a reality check to see like how sometimes people view different people a different way. And like another time I remember it happened to me, for example, I was in French class in college. That happened pretty recently. And I remember the teacher, she, at the beginning of the class, was like, okay, everyone, just say your name and say where you're from. Because I'm really, like, her class was about, like, different communities and I think French speaking states basically in the world. And so she was like, since we're talking about the world, I want to know kind of where people are from. My first encounter with like teacher, I'm like, cool, that's actually dope. It's fun to know a bit since we're talking about this topic. And so we go around, and I'm quite early in the alphabet. So I goes to my name, and I say I'm half French Canadian, and I'm also half Black. I'm from Haiti. Like my father's from Haiti. And I remember her face of like, and like my hair was tightly in a bun, so you can't really see the curls or anything. And she just looked at me and was like, oh, but it's just, I never would have guessed, because you're so pale. And see, it's just like that's one of the instances of like those like microaggressions things. Like almost the like, oh, well, you couldn't have been mixed because you're pale, so you're definitely white. And then that whole class for like 3 months, I almost had to remind her every time in certain ways because she kept making comments. And I know like one time we even were speaking of Haiti, like talking about that country. And then at one time she posted like some Creole on the board, and it was like, oh, haha, you guys try to guess what it means, because Creole is a compound of multiple languages, and like there's a lot of French sounding, at least, words. And she thought it was hilarious, the fact that the words sounded like we are speaking them but isn't written the same way. She thought it was the funniest thing ever. And then she was like, oh, can someone try and guess what it means? As in like, oh, it's such an easy and basic language. And then I translated it like with really serious face and everything. She's like, oh, how do you know that? And then I tell her again, I am half Haitian. I understand Creole. And then it was like almost like a step back she took, because she forgot that she was speaking about Haiti and there was someone from Haiti in the classroom. So that moment made me think, okay, no, I think she knows that she's doing something wrong. And that's I think, a difference in the microaggression that we need to bring up. Is a lot of it, I think the majority of it, is sometimes based on ignorance, and then based on not knowing, like, again, not being educated on the subject. But I've had a lot of instances where it's like, if you've been told that this is not okay, listen to your friends. If they tell you that they are uncomfortable with what you're saying, and if it affects them, it hurts them, then learn about it. If you want more like information, then ask them why and hurts them. But then don't do it again, because then it shows that once you've been told, it's not ignorance anymore. Once someone had told you that what you're saying is hurting them, hurting their culture, then it's just you choosing to go and be disrespectful to them, or even racist. So I think for people need to understand, like, that it can hurt their identity of the people who are, like, when they say stuff like that. Also, sometimes there's trauma associated with the culture and like something you say or something you do. And it's just to listen to your friends around you. They know how they're feeling. Their feelings are valid, and it's important to respect them. When they say those things, it's important to listen to them. And I think everyone should learn to do that.
I think that it's something that like will come through, hopefully, in having more conversations and opening the dialogue. And though like it can be seen as like, oh, okay, well, it's just a habit. Like I didn't mean to do it and everything. It's just a habit. Though it's a habit and it can be a habit, it's a habit that can be changed.
Yeah.
It's not something that like is an instinct. It is something that was learned in the first place, and anything that's learned can be unlearned.
Mm-hmm.
You touched briefly upon this like in your last answer, but mentioning that you weren't Black enough to be considered like Black or to be like grouped in with Black people, but you weren't like white enough to be like grouped in with white people, so you felt like a little bit in the middle. On that, I wanted to get your perspective on, or your experience on, and this may sound weird, but like experiencing Black oppression and white privilege while being a mixed race person. Have you yourself specifically felt like, oh, I think in this instance I have white privilege, or oh, I think in this instance I'm experiencing Black oppression?
Mm-hmm. That's something that's like always conflicting, because I feel like even during like when the movement started to blow up a lot a few weeks ago, after George Floyd's murder, I felt guilty, because even though I had felt Black oppression and like instances of racism, I've had a lot more white privilege than I've had racism encountered in my life. For example, I was able to go into pretty good schools and have education there, and at least it was fair education, whether I was mixed. There were like white people, there were people from a different, like multitude of different backgrounds all there. And I was able to get that education. I'm able to, if I want to go and get a job, I won't be singled out, at least as much as a Black person would. If I go to try and get an apartment, I will most likely get the apartment right away um, if I wanted, and I won't be blocked. Like just I was talking to my godmother, who's my grandfather's sister, and she talked to me about how when she first moved to Montreal, she went to go look at an apartment and who was being advertised as being free, like free for people to go in. And she went in, and when she came, they were like, "Oh, sorry, we already rented it." When they saw her, and then she was like, "Sounds a bit fishy." So she called her white friend to go check, and it was still available. But because she was black, they didn't want to rent it to her. And she said, if anything, I'm happy I didn't rent it because that shows I wouldn't have wanted to live in a place that's not accepting of me. But those instances have never happened to me, at least in that way. So although I've had like comments or like stuff about my hair or about how, just those little tiny things, most of the time I saw them as not a big deal because I've heard and I've seen instances of racism that were a lot worse. So, like, because on the balance, I've had a lot more of one than the other, it made me feel like those instances weren't valid. So it's kind of a weird situation, I feel, because I'm mixed. It's like, okay, I support that movement and I want to help them out, but then is it okay for me to speak out? And that's like a situation I thought about a lot about it, and I had to reflect a lot. And I don't think because there are small instances or not something I need to speak about. And it's just weird because it's like being just on that line, and then it's we're balancing both. But I am aware of my white privilege because I'm passing, and I am aware of that power that comes with it, which is something that I want to use more of in the future because I feel I haven't in the past as much as I could have, and I want to help people with that if I can. So I don't know. It's just a weird zone to be in because it never feels valid in one side, and then on the other, it made me feel guilty because I don't have more oppression, which is like a weird thing to say. But then I'm like, wait, but why does it have to always fall on them? And then it's a feeling of almost like of wanting to help and wanting to change things, but then feeling guilty of almost being on the oppressor side because of that white privilege.
Well, it's definitely a tricky situation that I think isn't really like talked about as much because it's not like it's on the, oh my god, okay, this is gonna be like such a like fitting analogy, but it's like it's not just like black and white because there's this whole gray area, right? And it's so weird putting it in context in a context like this because it's like we're talking about black and white people and being in the middle of that. But it's so true. Like when there is that gray area, there there's all sorts of different avenues that you're not too sure if it's like your place or you're
Mm-hmm.
not too sure like what to do about it. And I think on that, I want to ask you like what do you feel like your place within the movement, this push towards equality, what do you think your place is in that?
I feel like, at least more so now, that I've not at the beginning. At the beginning, I think I was more on the side of, okay, wait, maybe it's not my place to speak. Maybe it's not my, like, it's not that it's not my responsibility, but it's not my, I should be boosting platforms of other people and not myself. And I still feel a bit that way, but more so with a feeling of validity, like for what I've gone through and for what I've lived through. So more feeling like all those things are valid and they did happen, and it's okay even though they were smaller than what other people have had. It still happened, and it's still a thing. So I think I want to move on and try to educate people more, like than I've had in the past. Be more open about sharing my opinions when I feel I'm in a situation where I should speak up, and not be scared of the backlash that comes with it, which I think is something, because I was in a mostly white environment. When you're the only mixed person in the room, and then you hear something, a comment that they know that they wouldn't say in front of a black person, but because you're mixed, they're like, oh no, it's fine. She doesn't look black, so it's fine. The number of times that has happened and I haven't said anything, that now I'm looking back and like, wow, these are learning opportunities where I could have talked to my friends or talked to my peers and educated them on those things, and I haven't. That I deeply regret. And I think in the future, that's something I want to be more mindful of. The other thing is, I wasn't able to go to the protest because I am in a household that's really at risk for COVID, so I can't take those chances with that. But still, I was signing petitions every day. I was donating when I could. I was educating my friends and family and having conversations like we're having right now with people. And I think that's something everyone can do. Like having those live streams videos on YouTube, which have bomb music, by the way. So it's like it's not even a pain to listen to. You're actually listening to good music, and you're helping at the same time. So even if you can't go in the streets, which I wish I could have. If it wasn't for that, I would have been frontline and cheering as loud as everybody else there. But it's important for people to know that they can still help in other ways. And I think that's something, even though I've been telling my friends all the time, I still feel guilty about not doing more, because I can't right now because of what's happening. But I need to understand and take the advice I'm giving to my friends also, to be like, okay, you can't do the protest, but there's a bunch more things that you can do, and to try and move forward in that direction.
I think that's a very noble thing to do, and it makes sense because everyone does have like everyone can only do as much as they can, really. And I think it's not necessarily up to us to decide what someone can do and what someone can't do, or what's right and wrong for someone. But I think it's up to us to look within ourselves and find what we all can do with our given circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's a super dope place for you to be. And I think that raising awareness and having conversations like this, or like with your family members or with your friends, is a very powerful tool, and it can only do good, hopefully, in
Mm-hmm.
the long run.
Hopefully. But
Yeah.
something else also I wanted to add on that is, there's this taboo around people changing their opinions. And I think that's a lot due to cancel culture that we have right now. Like someone will have said something like 12 years ago, one time, and although it wasn't okay to say, I think people need to understand that people change. If there are minor instances and it's been done, uh, it is mandatory to um, talk about what has happened and say sorry for what happened and everything. But people also need to understand that people do change, and it's okay to change your mind, and it's okay to learn. Because I think that's something people are like putting this wall of like, oh, if you said like for example, if people are ignorant of what's happening and they are just now realizing that stuff that they said in the past was racist, and but they want to change, well, that's okay, and that's what we need. That's what These are the people we're trying to, like, the more of these people that join our cause, the more people we are to actually afterwards spread that. Because like most people, if they do have like um those thoughts, or they say stuff that are ignorant like that, most likely they're in an environment that was a bit like that. So by making those people learn about what is okay to say and what is not, then they can themselves afterward educate their friends around there and their circle, and then that circle can spread it a bit more and farther and farther. But if we just shame people for saying stuff in their past, or and without like giving them a chance to get better, I think that's just as bad, because then it's we're not moving forward.
Mm.
So I think we need to normalize people changing their opinions, because when you learn about the world, then the more you learn, the more your view is going to be educated, and everyone can learn more. I can certainly learn more. I read a lot, and also like do my own research and read about different sources, and every day you can learn more. Just read, watch videos, listen to podcasts, um, and talk to your friends. And I think that's something everybody can do every day, and that learning can lead to understanding, and that can help with change afterwards. So I think that's something we need to, again, just remove that whole taboo around people changing.
I have one last question, and then I'm going to let you go. As a mixed person, what are some things that you wish people would stop doing to you or saying about you?
um, I guess every time it's like a just those little comments, like, oh, but you're so pale. Oh, but you're not really mixed because you look white. Or on the other side, okay, but like you're too black for us. It's just like all those little comments about how, like, pointing out how different I am, I guess, is something that, I mean, I'm proud of being who I am and I'm proud of being different, but most of the time those comments are being thrown when there's a ignorance background to it or something like that. It is used to single me out and not so much as to embrace who I am, I guess. So it's more so to be careful um, around those things. But also, if it does happen, just don't be surprised if I call you out on it and that we have a conversation afterwards. Because again, the more you learn, the better everyone will be around. So uh, I guess that's more so that. And just be kind to one another, I guess. Just if everyone was just kind and respectful, we wouldn't be in such a weird spot right now. So sometimes you just need to think ahead of what you're about to say, think of the effects that it can have on the person, and then just, take your time. And yeah, to be okay with just having me talk to you if it doesn't make me comfortable. I guess it's more so. I can't really think of specific things other than that, but just if it does happen and I do have a problem with what you're saying, you will know it.
Well, Manu, thank you so much for being here, and thank you for sharing your experience with myself and everyone watching at home.
Well, thank you for doing this series of video. I think it's a really smart idea, and it's sharing different people's opinions, and it's it's people learning from each other and having a nice conversation about it.
Well, we talked a lot about opening up the dialogue, and I think we also talked about this, you and I, like where our place in all of this is, and I think I think this is in and around where my place is. Just trying to see what people are talking about, what people's experiences are, and share that with other people so that we can push forward and continue to talk about things. And with that, now, you here watching at home, it is your turn. Let us know what you thought about what we talked about today in the comments. If you agree with it, awesome. If you disagree with it, even better. Let's talk. Thank you for coming.